Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of 5 Star Radio. How are you guys doing on this lovely Victory Tuesday? I am personally feeling great. I hope you are feeling great. I hope Sunday was everything you could have hoped for. I hope last night was everything you could have hoped for. For me, it's been just a heck of a run here, and it has reminded me more than ever how much I love professional football. It's just the best. My guest today, as always, on Tuesdays on 5 Star Radio, the illustrious Mr. Steel Flyers. How you doing today, friend?
Oh, I'm not as quite as illustrious as you are, but I'm doing just as shiny.
We are all illustrious in our own ways, my friend.
You got it.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I want to welcome the people in the chat watching us live. Make sure that you hit that like button if you are in here. I see 9 or 10 people already trickled in. I only see
Nice.
1 or 2 likes, so make sure you click that button. Help us rank a little bit. Steel Flyers, we have barely even talked just for, a minute, 2 minutes before we got on. So this will be just true reaction. We haven't connected. How do you feel after the 48 hours after
48 hours after the first win.
After a gorgeous, unexpected, I would say impressive Week 1 win?
All right. First of all, thank you for having me on, my man. It's always a pleasure to be a part of whatever you're doing. Your first video to commemorate Week 1 was in mid-season form already. So
Thank you. Thank you.
If you haven't checked out 5 Star Matchups video for Week 1 against the Bills, then you are seriously missing out. So go check that out on YouTube at his channel at 5 Star Matchup.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, man, got to check that out for sure. So
I finished
thank you
that
very
one.
much.
I finished that one by 3 a.m., which is actually a pretty decent mid-season performance for me. I was worried I was going to be up till 5.
See, you're already in mid-season for. I told you. All right. How do I feel 48 hours after the first win? Let's say this. Does TJ Watt need training camp?
Doesn't look like it.
Did they really need to cycle him out? I think towards the end of the game there, he was getting he was getting a little
even
out of
early,
breath.
there were points where he was winded. He played a lot of snaps, but people didn't realize that there were moments where they did take him out. I did notice a couple times on first and second downs. And I that's what I said. I never was trying to talk down on him that he was going to miss snaps, but I did realize he was going to probably play a little bit less snaps than he normally would.
Right. Probably. Yeah, I would agree. And I think that's exactly what happened. I think he did play, probably about 89%.
I have a segment on snap counts, so let's not go too in depth on that. I do have a snap count thing prepared, so
well,
just saying.
Well, fine, then.
Just saying. No, I'm just saying. We're gonna get. That's gonna be the next point.
On the head.
So just do. We're just doing the initial.
Yeah, just initial reaction. I got to say this. I was more shocked about how badly Buffalo played as compared to how well Pittsburgh played. Every single talking head out there picked Buffalo to win this game. I mean, across the board, on every channel, everywhere you looked, everybody was picking Buffalo. Look, on paper and the matchups and everything, it's like what we talked about last week before the game. And I said, where is this game going to be won? And that's exactly where this game was won. It was won in the trenches. Our offensive line was able to push their defensive line to the point where they only got 2 sacks on Ben, and Ben was not running around and being chased pretty much.
He did get clocked a couple times, a couple too many for my taste. He was holding
too late as far as I'm concerned.
There
2
was
of them
one
were late.
that was late. There was one that was definitely late. He was definitely feeling himself circa 2007. I could see it in the way he was playing. I think he kind of welcomed the contact in a way that, Ben's always been like that. He doesn't start. He wants to get hit, and he wants to be able to get in the defender's face and be like, "Oh, you thought like you were going to hurt me, right?" Like he likes to just do that. And
I mean, you don't call him large Benjamin for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. He's not medium Ben. But he I thought there were a couple of times when he could have stood to get rid of it a little sooner, and I think we're going to see that balance play out as the season continues to go on. I think what I'm really thinking about when I saw him on Sunday, the thing I can't get out of my head is how different Brady looked at the beginning of last year when he was suddenly in Arians' offense and he was chucking it deep a whole bunch, and you were like, oh, he's missing, like, and there were times where I thought it looked like him and Mike Evans weren't on the same page. It looked like him and Godwin weren't. And you're like, wow, is this really not going to work out for Tom? And then they won the Super Bowl. So I think you're going to see a little bit of it looks like Ben is going to find where he fits with Canada and where they, who's the hand, who's the glove, how they fit together.
And that's something that I want to get into here in a little bit later as well about that too. But just based off of initial reactions, like I said, I think Buffalo played a little bit down
I agree.
what their expectations were, and I believe Pittsburgh played above what their expectations were.
Yeah.
So my initial reactions were, okay, the score was not very indicative of the game.
I guess you could say that's fair. I mean, to me, if you say that you really do consider Buffalo to be a legitimate Super Bowl contender, which I think most people probably do, right? Right? Would you?
Yeah.
So if you consider that them to be a legitimate Super Bowl contender, then I think you would have to say that beating them by 7 in their house, I don't see that as, there's nothing about that scoreboard that can be minimized to me, because I see the 17 next to PIT in the fourth quarter, and that's against a team that might win the Super Bowl or might have a good chance to win the Super Bowl. So
exactly.
I watch too much football. I can't start putting disclaimers on road wins. Can't do it.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that at all.
Yeah.
But what I was trying to get at basically was this, that I felt that Buffalo they didn't perform as well, and Pittsburgh overperformed or performed way better than most people thought they were gonna. And this was more of a game of, I really feel that even though this was game 1, and I don't really,
it felt like more than that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
No, it did. It did.
Okay.
It felt
right,
like
so
a bigger
I'm not
statement.
The only one then.
No, winning this game for the Steelers was a much bigger statement than winning this game would have been for Buffalo.
Okay.
I believe, because Buffalo's going to get it going. They're going to be one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the AFC. They are. There's no 2 ways about it. But I mean, that's my opinion. If you want to stretch that to say top 4 teams, okay, fine. But they're somewhere in there. McDermott's done a really good job with them. I can't knock it. But I don't know, man. I thought they did. I agree with you that they did underachieve. I thought their quarterback was, you wouldn't look at the stat sheet and think it, but I thought their quarterback was decidedly the second best quarterback playing in that game.
I have to agree with you on that. Where they excuse me, at the beginning of the game, they were putting him at the same level, as the game progressed, he, I believe, was definitely the second best quarterback out there for that game. So now we've gotten past that initial reaction, like, okay, all right. Now
wow, you want to hear an interesting
game?
one? I didn't even see this statistic till just right now. Did you know Ben even had a higher yards per attempt than Allen?
Yeah.
Isn't that wild? Considering how much it looked like Allen was chucking it deep. Ben had him beat by almost over half a yard, 5.9 to 5.3.
Wow. That's, I mean,
I haven't seen anybody talk about that. Now that I'm looking at it, that's
yeah,
considering
that's
Allen's reputation. I mean, he missed his could have been way higher because he missed at least two that were
easily.
the first one to Emmanuel was pretty unforgivable for a high end quarterback.
Yeah.
If Ben missed that throw, we'd be absolutely killing him.
I agree with you on that 100%. You know what I mean? So, all right. So, that initial, yeah, we love. Look, I'm all for victory formation,
Yep.
and if I get to see that in a game, I'm like, I'm down with the victory formation. So,
My favorite addition is when it's such a victory formation that it's not even Roethlisberger doing it; it's Mason.
Yeah.
I like when it's like such a good
Okay.
win that they don't even have to put Ben out there for that. You know,
It's Mason or
Yeah.
Delane Askins out there
Oh
doing
my
it. Yeah,
God.
all right. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Okay. Yeah, that's the
I said it in one episode last year. I was just like, I said nobody takes a knee, and I was like nobody, and I mean nobody takes a knee like Mason Rudolph. And somebody who clearly, the best thing is when people don't get my humor, like if they haven't seen the show before, somebody
Right.
was like, you're giving him credit for taking a knee. I was like, dude.
like yep, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I was
We're
totally
giving him-
serious.
Yeah.
Some people, man.
Oh my gosh. I am gonna say this.
I'm sorry to interrupt your point. Sorry.
No. After my first impression, right? So for you, what was the thing? What was the main thing that stuck out to you that was either A, the turning point in the game, or B, something that was part of the game from the beginning that just got the Steelers to where they needed to be? I mean, did you feel like there was a turning point in the game, or did you feel that there was actually a build up to it? Like because
Yeah.
each team kind of followed their game plan, like they
Yeah.
never really
I think-
deviated from their
I
game
think
plan.
one of the reasons I've been a big proponent of this since right after the game, I think I said it on the post-game show, which is now available on Spotify, by the way. So if you listen to 5 Star Radio, you can get our post-game show and some of our radio stuff available on Spotify. So make sure you do that. It helps us out a little bit. Our project manager, Austin, set that up recently, so he's doing a great job for us. Appreciate that. Shout out, Austin. I said right after the game, I really think that this was a really high-end signature performance by the Steelers who didn't play football. And what I mean by that is Tomlin, Butler, Terrell Austin, Matt Canada. I was so impressed by Tomlin this week because I know his relationship with McDermott. I know they're close. I know Tomlin's also an ultimate competitor. He got the best of them the last 2 times, even though I might argue that Buffalo didn't really get the best of us against Duck because they should have won that game by like 20 points and Duck had a chance to tie it.
Yeah.
So I would argue that's not really a
All
win,
right.
but whatever. To me, he faced a challenge, and I thought he embraced it really well. I think it was clear that they used the extra time to prepare for their opponent, which I don't think it's always been the case with week 1 with Mike T's teams, is sometimes they look unprepared. And today, there was one thing he mentioned that I thought was the most telling about how they were on their P's and Q's. And this is a point to all the Yinzers who want to argue that Mike Tomlin doesn't know what he's talking about and he's all flash, no substance. They were prepared for that 4th down play that Buffalo ran, the 4th and 1 where they did the fake to the fullback and then the pitch out to the tailback, and Cam Sutton made the tackle. They knew that was coming or thought that could be coming because they saw Buffalo run fullback dive a lot in the preseason, and they thought that the obvious permutation of that would be to flip it in on its head and say, we're handing it to the fullback, flip it out to the tailback. And clearly, if it was something that they talked about enough that Tomlin brought it up post-game, and I think Cam Sutton did, that's being prepared. I'm not going to say it's some Belichickian genius, but to me, the turning point and the thing that flipped this game was really what the coaching staff did.
So it was before the game was even played for you.
Yeah.
It was already decided by the time that the game plan was put into place.
And I think you're going to see that a lot this year. I think that's going to be a little bit of the Steelers' strategy. I think you're going to see a lot of frustrating and slow first and second quarters because I think with Najee now being the horse, they're going to say, let's just get through the half. We have a defense that can get us through a half. And then we turn on old Bionic Benjamin in the third quarter. And then even if he needs to chuck it, he's still only throwing it a total of 30 or 32 times. I think I'm seeing Najee as this tool to be, an excuse to be controlling the clock. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, I know that sounds obvious, but I think it's going to be strategically a part of what they employ.
We felt at the beginning of the season that Najee was going to be the workhorse, and we felt that in order for this offense to be as balanced as it can be, it needs to be Najee getting the ball between 21 and 25 times a game, whether it be passes, whether he lines up in the slot, or whether he's getting it out of the backfield, or whether they're handing the ball off to him. Okay, it doesn't really matter, because that in and of itself takes the pressure off of Ben to having to throw it 50 times.
Yeah.
Okay, so
every week you have Ben throw 32 times. I mean, that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. Statistically, if you look at Ben Roethlisberger's career, right, throughout his entire career, anywhere between 25 and 32 attempts. Okay? If Ben Roethlisberger stays within that 25 to 32 attempts, he usually completes in the upward range of 70 to 80% of the passes he completes. He gets more touchdowns and less interceptions, right? More yards per attempt as well. More bigger plays, like more plays of plus 20 yards. Okay? So if you keep Ben in that window, in that pocket area of that amount of attempts, statistically it's panned out that over the averages over the years, that's the best way. That's where you got to have him. That's the sweet spot.
And you know what I'm interested in too, I told you I do want to do a thing on snap counts, but I'm still just kind of I haven't really looked over the box score until today, just because it's like I do the show all night and then I have to do something that's not football for like 10 minutes, so
only 10 minutes.
Yeah. I'm a workhorse, I get back.
Okay,
it's like
that's
7-8 minutes,
minutes.
No, but it's the first time I'm really looking at it in depth. And I noticed, I pointed out earlier that Ben actually had a higher yards per attempt than Allen. How about this? This is, I think, a really encouraging thing for the Canada offense. Okay. So, Steelers leading receivers: Juju 4 for 52, Claypool 3 for 45, Diontae 5 for 36, Pat 1 for 24, Ebron 1 for 19, and Washington had a couple. But if you look at that, out of those top 5 receivers, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them were 13 or higher yards per catch. I mean, so it's you're looking at Juju 13 yards per catch, Claypool 15 yards per catch, freiermuth only 1 but 24 yards, and Ebron 19. So speaking of that depth of target issue that was the problem with Roethlisberger last year, that's what he doesn't have to complete bombs every play. No one needs to do that, and no one expects you to do that. But if you're hitting Claypool for 15 yards, 3 for 45, that's great. That's consistent.
That's 3 first downs at least.
I
I mean,
thought his last throw to Claypool, I put it in the show, that last third and 7 before the Boz kick. I really thought that was his best throw of the day. That was just
yeah,
perfect.
I agree.
He was feeling himself by the end of the game.
Agreed, because and this is the one thing that I wanted to say a little bit that I wanted to talk about earlier that now we can talk about it
Yeah.
now is that during Ben's press conference, that was one of the things that he mentioned as well was the whole getting on the same page with Najee.
Yeah. They
You
were
know what
off.
I mean?
They were
That
not in sync.
right. Okay. And one of the things that I heard throughout the game was that Najee calls him coach.
I did hear that too.
Right? And I'm like, all right, well, okay. And then you saw after those first two incompletes where Najee was coming out of the backfield and he was just doing that little derp toss
Yeah.
in the middle of the zone where everybody's, 10 yards back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? And Najee's like, oh, and the ball goes flying.
And he missed on a couple, yeah.
Right. So
that
this
was
is what
that was one of best. There's just that one when they were approaching the end zone. I don't remember if I think they ended up taking a field goal on that drive. That might have been Boz's second field goal when they got to 6 points.
Yes.
And Najee, I don't know if he would have gotten there because there was two defenders that could have closed in, but I kind of like my chances with that dude getting it in his hands. And Ben did miss pretty bad on that one. I thought the other one where Najee was in the middle of the field and he was just kind of like the hot read, like outlet pass. I did think that was on him. I think he got his head around late on that one.
Yes.
But the one down by the goal line, Ben just missed. I'm not making an excuse for that. That wasn't on Najee. Ben missed that.
Agreed. Okay. So, but they clearly weren't necessarily clicking on the same page. And that's something that I think, and that's the other thing too, that you mentioned as far as the Canada offense and how, things are going to look a little different. And this is the other thing too that Ben mentioned in his press conference, the fact that this is the first time that he's had an offensive coordinator not be on the field with him.
I love it. The second I heard that Canada was doing that, I was so enthused.
Okay. So, but for Ben, right, he's like, he handled it very well by saying that he was able to get, input from another coach.
Sure.
So he doesn't need that, but he's listening to him through the head.
Yeah,
but that's who's talking to him in his helmet.
Mm-hmm.
Is Canada. So I mean,
ain't that a better view of what's going on in a football field anyway? To be honest, I mean, I've always felt that way. What are you seeing from the sideline? It's great having close-up seats in football, but you can't see the game as well as you do when you're up. You do see the actual physical game better when you're high up from a strategic standpoint, etc.
Unless you're like 6'5".
Yeah.
And I don't know too many offensive coordinators for the NFL right now that are that tall.
Well, even then, you're not really getting
exactly.
I think that's a great thing, and I think it's a great thing. Yeah. The reason I love it is because of how freaking persnickety Ben has proven to be over the years. I mean, I love the man, but he doesn't always work the best with others. And I think sometimes you're talking about a guy now who's like 30. I mean, it really hit me the other day when they were like, oh, the 39-year-old quarterback. And I was like, damn, man, like, that's my guy. Like, he's really 39.
He
like,
really is that old.
It's so wild, like, how quickly that's happened, where suddenly, you're like, oh, Ben's 35, 36. And you're like, yeah, but that's still something. But at 39 now, the reality of it is we have to all acknowledge that we don't always know. We don't know when the end of this thing might be, because once you hit that point, it could be, it could be any time. We've seen enough sports. You don't know. And I think that's why the back half of last season was so emotional for me in particular, and why I lost my mind in the Colts game, because I truly was starting to doubt whether or not my guy, like my all-time hero, truly, since I was 14 years old. I mean, it's most of my life at this point.
Yeah.
And I was really starting to say, can he not do this anymore? And then that game showed me, oh no, he can do it. It doesn't have enough help.
So for me, it was watching Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah.
right? And Terry Bradshaw didn't exactly have this meteoric rise to the top and then stay at the top for a number of years and then
No, it was a
just
struggle.
slowly decline. Yeah. I think that had a lot to do with the coach that he was
Yes.
playing for. Um,
But Terry and Ben are so similar, and that's why they clash. They really are.
you mean like in real life or
I
whatever?
like Ben more
Yeah.
because Ben's my dude, but they're both very salty people who get bitter about stuff. I think Ben has proven to be a little bit more redeemable. I think Bradshaw, I don't know, man. He's too fake for me. I don't buy it.
Well, what I was trying to compare it to was towards the end of Bradshaw's career.
Yeah.
You could tell that it was going to be the end.
Yeah. Yeah, it was winding down.
His elbow just was not allowing him to throw the ball like he was able to in the past. And I think that was the main thing that just killed him was the fact that his elbow was all screwed up and he wasn't able to throw the ball.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's different, you see, because Ben's not in that situation where Ben is going to be able to outlive the game. And what I mean by that is like Tom Brady is outliving the game.
Yes.
Darryl Green outlived the game. Adrian Peterson is outliving the game. I mean, some of these guys that have played for, 15, 20, however many years, look, you make it
I always
past...
respect a pass rusher who can do that. Like
Yeah.
like a Justin Houston. I watched him last night. He still looks like freaking Justin Houston from 5 years ago.
How long did Jason Taylor play?
Yeah,
And
no,
that guy could still put his hand in the dirt.
I mean, Debo. How about James Harrison? I mean, the guy was still, he wasn't the same player, but still, he was getting after quarterbacks at 38, 39.
Silverback could get
There was
there.
a time when I don't think there was anybody older than him in the NFL than kickers, and he was playing outside linebacker.
And he could still get there. I mean, I can't wait. Look, I don't usually plug things, but I'm a huge James Harrison fan. The vice president has his jersey.
Yeah.
Okay. And so his football life story is coming out September 24th.
Yep. Very interesting.
Right? And I'm going to be front and center for that one. Okay. Because
he's great.
Yeah. There is something about a man who straps 1,000 pounds of metal to himself and carries it around like he's just walking.
The only thing is,
store.
I can't help it with him. The whole end of his time here just bummed me out. Yeah. And it did bother me. And I know it's not my real right to feel that way. I don't own the player, but that bugged me. I didn't like it. I felt like, especially in that season, they were clicking on such a level, and especially with the loss of Shazier and stuff. I just thought, dude, like, can't you be a leader? It's like 3 more weeks. Why do you have to... it bugged me. I don't usually dock players for stuff like that, but as a Steeler, it bugged me.
I get what you're saying, but you know what? Here's kind of how I have to look at some things too, because we don't know the full story. We don't know everything that happened with all that or how that all went down. And so, look, do players make mistakes? You bet. Are they going to eventually have to pay for those mistakes like everybody else in life? I would like to see that happen more.
Yeah.
But
no, I mean, what he did, it's not like he was a bad person for it. I'm just saying, as somebody like assessing his Steeler legacy, it just knocked him down ever so slightly for me in that hierarchy of guys. Like, I didn't care that he went and signed a free agent deal with the Bengals. That's fine. The Steelers didn't want to re-sign him. He wanted to go for more money. I don't care about that. That's fine. You're an independent contractor. But it was just that season, that moment, what happened, what was going on, and it just felt like, I don't know, it lowers him for me. And there's been guys who, after they left, climbed back up a little bit. Like, I never felt like bad blood towards like Santonio Holmes. I never really felt bad about, a couple other guys that came and left, but him.
Okay, I got you there. But Santonio Holmes basically spilled his own milk.
Yeah.
Okay. And most of the other guys that left in not the best terms from the Pittsburgh Steelers have basically been in that particular type of situation where they've spilled their own milk.
Yeah.
And the team had nothing else to do but to get rid of them.
You know who I give credit to? I just always bring this up whenever this topic comes up. Just a genuinely great dude who had a better and longer NFL career than most of us probably realize is Mike Wallace, who actually carved a very good career for himself. And
He
I
played
think
11 years, I think.
yeah,
or-
some people I think just forget because he wasn't putting up giant numbers after he left. But if you go and look at his career, I give him a little credit because he gets looped in a little bit with those guys sometimes, and the guy did carve a good career for himself and made a lot of money off of being just really fast. So
I mean,
nothing but respect. I thought him and Ben were just made for each other, man. I never wanted him to go. I would have been totally fine. I was big AB too, but I would have been fine if Mike took the deal.
yeah, I'm with you on that too. I was a little bit disappointed that he didn't.
Me too. I had
You
his
know what I
jersey.
mean?
He was one of my favorites immediately.
Yeah, I was like, "What, Mike? What are you doing? Come on, where are you going, buddy? What? You're not going to get it any better.
I
You're really
know.
not." And he didn't.
No,
Nobody does.
but
Nobody
he
does.
made money, so good for
Well,
him.
okay, well,
I
let me
know.
ask you a question. At that point in time in your career, right, where it was his first contract coming off his rookie deal,
Yeah, so he played 4 years and then
Right.
yeah.
and then left, right?
Mhm.
So it was his first contract after his rookie deal. Are you more worried about making money or winning championships?
I think that first one you got to be more. Yeah, there a lot they wouldn't say it, but I think a lot are more worried about getting money. And I
That's
think
what I mean.
yeah, I don't know. It's hard to blame him. I mean,
I don't blame anybody for
yeah,
that.
yeah, you
Yeah.
got to get paid. Guy like that who your whole game's predicated on speed. I mean, you tear one thing and suddenly you just don't have your skill set anymore.
Exactly. So
no.
that's why I don't have a problem with that, and that's what had always seems to disappoint me about the Steelers is that sometimes they have this otherworldly player fall into their lap. They have an opportunity to make this otherworldly player retire as a Steeler, and what do? They put their foot in their mouth. They fall in the mud.
Yeah.
They screw up the scrambled eggs. I mean,
Yeah.
what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
I mean, you get what I'm saying, though, right?
Yeah.
Like, they had an opportunity to take care of Le'Veon Bell. Now, was Le'Veon Bell asking for an outrageously stupid amount of money that he
Yeah.
ended up getting considerably less by going to the Jets? But if they would have just taken care of him,
They
if
wanted
would
to.
have just- I mean,
Le'Veon would have been Le'Veon, no matter how good he was throughout the second. If there's a world where he takes the 5 for 70 that everybody talks about, he would have been signed. I think. Let me see. That would have taken into effect for 18. So 18, 19, 20, 21. So he would have been making most of the last money of that deal this year.
yeah.
And even if he wasn't the same player, Le'Veon Bell would have already been locked in as an all-time Steeler great. He would have been a beloved long-term Steeler. Like
I
he
guarantee you.
was the most of this last generation of that Killer B era who could have ascended to that if he wanted. He would have been absolutely beloved.
I also think AB could have done the same thing.
AB did do it, and then he gave it up.
Well, okay, yeah, all right, yeah.
AB did
he
it.
did do it.
AB
and
was
then he
beloved. I
just
won't
threw it away.
I won't look at that with any revisionist viewpoint where people are like, oh, I always thought he was. Yeah, we all thought he was crazy the whole time, but we also all were like, well, he works harder than everyone else and he's the best player on the team, so I can't really be mad about it. But it just, people do, I think, sometimes act like we all were like, oh, we can't deal with this anymore. Because I think generally most people were like, well, he's really good though, so it's fine.
It was more like AB did something really stupid again, but man, he had 9 catches and 120 yards and 5 touchdowns.
he was that good, man.
But
He
you
was
see
that
what I
good.
mean,
Yeah.
though? It's like,
No, it's an abusive relationship. That's what I always say with AB. It's like I have like an abusive ex where I just, I can't help myself. I see what they're capable of, and I'm like, man, when they're good, they're good. But you always overlook the bad, and I think, unfortunately, with him, it one outweighed the other after a while. But Le'Veon, to your point, I think would have been absolutely beloved. He would have finished that second contract. He would have been signing shit at Total Sports Enterprises for 20 years, making $1 million. I mean,
Exactly my point. And he could have stayed with an offensive line that I feel that if Le'Veon would have been signed and stayed there, certain other things would have happened.
It changes everything.
To where the offensive line might have stayed a little bit more intact to some of the other players that were there, or whatever.
No, it changes. You're totally right. It changes. It changes everything. It changes even the process with Roethlisberger. You have no idea. It changes everything. Absolutely true.
That's why when we did this way back, and you said Najee Harris was going to be the guy for the Steelers, and I was like, man. The last thing we need is this guy. Right?
Yeah.
And boy, was I wrong.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Well, gosh, you didn't have to admit that so quickly.
Well, no, here's the thing. Here's the thing with Najee, and the reason I think it's a good point that you're bouncing from Le'Veon to him, because I think a lot of people looked at the box score and they expected, you remember like James Conner in 2018 week 1 when it was his first game as a starter, and he went for like $140, and everybody was like, yo, James Conner is pretty good. And I think a lot of people were expecting that out of Najee, but what you have to look at is the fact that he got better as the game went on. He converted a number of short yardage runs that last year would have been Benny Snell or James Conner getting stuffed. And on top of that, he did have an impact. A guy like that, it's like Le'Veon. And he'll only get better at this, but he impacts every play because you have to respect what he can do out of the backfield as a receiver, and you can't just slap your regular buck linebacker on him and say, "Oh, go guard that guy." I mean, because you have to account for it. So he affects everything, and he opens up that middle stuff for Juju and Claypool, and so It was never lost on me that I always thought Ben was at his absolute best when he was in the shotgun with number 26 next to him. When he had a guy where he was like, I know I can rely on you for pass coverage when you need to do it, which Le'Veon was great at. Absolutely great.
I mean, it took him a year or two, but he is
excellent. Excellent.
Very good, yes.
And so I'll never take that away from him. And so I think Ben had this guy. He's like, I know I can trust that he's always going to be on the same page. God forbid something happens. All I got to do is flip it somewhere within a 5-yard radius of him, and he'll catch it. Because, again, sometimes I think a guy leaves and he has a couple mediocre years, and I think some fans have a tendency to lower them in their mind a little bit. Go back and look at the touchdown catch Le'Veon made against the Jaguars in the playoffs. That's a wide receiver touchdown catch, okay? Le'Veon was an elite receiver of the football before he took a year off. So I think that was when Ben was at his best, and I always felt that from him. And so that's why I knew Najee when I looked at him. I was like, ETN, I don't know. I don't see him changing everything. But Najee, I was like, I can't imagine a player that would impact the way Roethlisberger is going to go about his business more than that. And I feel that way after one game.
And I think that's exactly what we're going to see game in, and week out. We're going to see the ball being fed to the feature back of Najee Harris. And exactly with what your point was that when Najee lined up in the slot, okay, and then there was the bunch formation at the top, that's when some of the best pass plays to Juju happened. And to that was the one for Claypool too as well, right? So the fact that they are exactly what you're talking about. They're using his skill set and putting it out there on the slot, like a la
Mm-hmm.
Le'Veon Bell,
Yes.
who was a threat every time he was on the field to catch the ball. So Najee is that type of
They
player.
they are. This is I'm gonna make a basketball comparison, but if you think about it, I think of right now Najee is he's the young, just naturally good scoring either two guard or small forward. He's the guy you're just going to keep feeding the rock, and he's going to get his points. It's like Kevin Durant. You could watch him play and be like, wow,
Yep.
he didn't have that good of a game, and suddenly he scored 32 points, and you're like, where?
Wait,
and
what?
I see Ben right now. This is going to date me a little bit, but I see Ben as like when Magic was still playing in the 90s, and you point guard, again, to quarterback comparison, he doesn't need to have everything in his physical toolkit anymore because he knows how to use the tricks of the trade, and he did that expertly on Sunday. He knew there was the Claypool deep pass interference where Ben purposely threw it short. It wasn't because he underthrew it. He knew that Claypool had the guy in such a position that if he came back at him, and that's Claypool's been a master of drawing those as a young guy. And late, he drew the holding on Diontae when he chucked it deep over his head too. I see Ben as really being this facilitator now, and I think it's going to be a great change for him.
Another example of that was the pass that he threw when he was in the grasp, and they thought it was a intentional grounding. But when they looked at it, you see Ben looking over his shoulder to see where he is before he turns around to throw the ball outside the tackles.
Yes.
I mean, come on.
There was one moment I will say that they gave Ben too much credit on the broadcast when he threw that terrible interception that they called it back because of a penalty, like a holding. And I think it was Ian Eagle who said, "Oh, well, he saw the holding and that's why he threw it." Ben didn't see it. I watched that back. Ben had no idea. That was a horrible throw, and he got bailed out.
Lucky on that one.
That's such a like mid '90s. I think of like Dan Marino and the way that like anytime he threw an interception, it was somebody else's fault, and that was one of those where I was just like, man, if that was actually a pick, Ben would have been like, well, I saw a hold and I thought they were gonna call it. It was a terrible throw. It was one point.
He threw it right to him.
I thought he was great, but there was about two throws, maybe three in the game that were really very bad.
Agreed.
But they were just bad decisions, not anything to do with his physical ability, which I think is the important distinction.
Making a bad decision is a mental thing where you don't have the tools to accomplish the physical task as something completely different. So I'll take those mental boo-boos.
He's done that. He's been watching him do that for 16 years.
I mean, look.
I could have had a kid in Ben's rookie year, and he would be old enough to drive now, and that's how long I've been watching Ben make mistakes like that.
Thank you for making me feel twice as old as you.
I mean, the only person that should make feel old is Roethlisberger.
Yeah, because God, he has kids now that are,
I did want to, just as it's getting late early, as they say for us here on 5-Star Radio, I did want to just say real quick, make sure you hit that like button if you're in the chat. Helps us rank in the algorithm, so on. But I did want to bring up this point on snap counts because I found a couple things really interesting. I just Googled it, and Behind the Steel Curtain was the first one that came up, so that's what I'm referencing. Excuse me if I'm off by a snap or two. Blame those fellas if I am.
All right.
Hey, I'm just saying. The interesting things offensively that leap off the page for me. One, this has already been noted by others, but Najee Harris played 100% of the offensive snaps, which I think is wildly interesting and telling. Kendrick came out for just 3 snaps. I was worried he was hurt, but he came back in right away. I don't know what that was.
Yeah.
Diontae missed a few snaps. He went out, looked like he got hurt, but he's totally fine. I thought that was cramps. Claypool, a little bit less than Diontae, but here's where it gets really interesting. Tight end, Pat freiermuth, 29 snaps, 50% of the offensive snaps. Eric Ebron, 27 or 47%. So freiermuth already playing a couple more snaps than Ebron. Interesting, but not blown away. Here's what's really interesting to me. 16 snaps. This is the next most common player. Zach Gentry, tight end. 16 snaps, 28%. Below that, James Washington, 15 snaps, 26%. Isn't that interesting?
I think the reason why you're seeing that is because of the fact of the tackles.
Yeah,
right
just
now.
giving them some extra help.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good point.
And I think it's also given Gentry some snaps and some time. You know what I mean? And,
no,
and
but I
'cause
would
Canada
think
has said he's going to use.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
he
saying?
has said he wants to go multiples with tight ends. I guess when I see Zach Gentry more snaps than James Washington, I was surprised. I don't know. I thought it was.
Okay.
I thought it
Okay.
came a little bit. I mean, you're talking about tight end 3 over. That's showing that realistically they see their wide receivers as Juju, Diontae, and Claypool, and Washington really is a reserve. And if that's the case, I guess I get a little bit more where Washington was coming from.
And that's exactly what I saw it as well. I saw it as Washington being the 4th receiver, and I'm seeing Gentry just as blocking.
Yeah.
Because he did not go for he didn't catch any passes.
I think he had one target. I think Ben might have missed him on a throw.
Right?
I think he had one target.
And I'm wondering, of those snaps, how many of those snaps were straight offense? That 16 snaps straight offense?
Yes. He played 9 special teams as well.
Okay, because that was what was going to be
and
my next question.
Derek Watt played only 4 on offense, but he played 20 special teams snaps. And also interesting, who's becoming actually a pretty nice special teams player is Benny Snell. He had 19 special team snaps, and I like a third-year running back who's willing to be good at special teams. I just think Benny's good. I think Benny's just a good dude. I just kind of like him. I always give him a shout-out when I can.
That's how TD made it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the infamous story of how Terrell Davis made it onto the squad as being the first guy down there, the gunner, to take out the guy on the kickoff return. I mean, if you're a running back and you're willing to do that kind of stuff, all right, I'll hand you the ball off 25 times a game, no problem.
I still, though, the Najee playing 100% of snaps is very surprising to me. I think he probably wouldn't have if he got more carries. But I find it surprising. I don't know, don't you? That there were no snaps that Benny or Kalen Ballage came in for.
As a feature back, he was being featured. When he wasn't being featured, he was part of the blocking schemes, or he was part of the actual routes that were being run. He was one of the receivers.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So that to me doesn't surprise me at all, because that to me is right up there with Le'Veon, because Le'Veon very rarely left the field.
Yeah.
Right?
Until we got to D'Angelo, and then D'Angelo took a few, but yeah.
But for the most part, he still stayed in on third downs, and even though they were complete passing downs, if he wasn't back there with Ben to help
who
protect,
you putting in that's a better receiver than Le'Veon?
Exactly.
I mean, shoot, there were times where besides AB, he was the second best receiver on the team. Frankly,
so now
15, 16.
If you look at the Steelers now,
you
go to Claypool and Juju and Diontae. Then what? Then you got Washington.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's really interesting to look at the distribution of snaps for the wide receivers, and I think this is a point in my column of what I'm constantly championing, which is that Juju, to me, is still obvious. I don't even think I'm breaking any news, and I don't understand why people argue with me when I say it. Juju Smith-Schuster is the number 1 receiver on the team. I mean, he just is. He played 91% of the snaps. That's 15% more than the next closest guy. And I know you could say Diontae came out for a few plays, but What?
So
Still, it's clear that if a guy played 53 out of 58 snaps, and talking about Claypool only 39 out of 58, to me, that's your number one receiver. AB never came off the field. AB played like 100% of the snaps, unless he ran a go and didn't get it or something. He was always on the field.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Juju,
I mean, even if he didn't do anything, he was still on the field.
Juju,
yeah,
I have by far of anybody when Ben drops back and I see that ball going towards number 19, I have by far the most confidence that it's going to be a completion than I do of anybody. He's always on the same page. You see him with Diontae Diontae and him still not on the same page. Claypool, you see it a little bit, but I think they're getting
that's
there.
Coming. Yeah,
Diontae, they're still struggling to be on the same page at times, and I'm not trying to throw Diontae under the bus. He made a great touchdown catch, which, to your point earlier, that was the turning point in the game. I think that was just a moment, and I think that meant more than just a touchdown for Diontae. So good for him. Yes. But all I'm saying is, if you give me the choice and it's a game winner, I want 19. If I'm a betting man, I'm putting my money on 19 more than anybody else.
Can't even argue that with you at all.
I see so much Hines. I see so much of Hines. I feel like
it's almost like the same body style, except Juju's a little taller.
He's the evolution of it, though. He's the more physical.
Hines Ward 2.0.
He's the more physical. I mean, I don't know. When I see them play, I see Juju. That if you go and watch, I'm not going to plug my own content, but if you go and watch the 2010 rewind game I did against the Bills, it was so similar in so many ways. And one of the things I noted in that was, look at Hines settling down here. And you see a guy who's not that fast. Yeah. He doesn't leap off the page. Hines, if you go on that 2010 team, Hines would have probably come in only ahead of offensive and defensive linemen in a straight dead line race.
Something like that. And he wasn't the burner.
Yeah, and I mean, Juju's got a little bit more athleticism, and he's bigger and stronger, but the way he knows how to settle into zones and find the contact with Ben, the eye contact to be, here I am, because that's been one thing that I've thought has been missing much of the last decade for the Steelers. In the early Roethlisberger days, not only was he scrambling, and that's what made their offense good, it's that they had receivers, Hines, Cedric Wilson, Santonio, who were absolutely great at improvising after the route.
Antoine Randall was another one that was really good at that, because he was an ex-quarterback. The same thing with Hines Ward.
That's a skill. It's a skill. You're not inherently good at it. Guys aren't always good at that. And
exactly.
I think we've struggled to have guys like that. I don't think that I feel confident in anybody on that roster right now to do that consistently, except for Juju. And honestly, maybe freiermuth, because freiermuth he's going to be good.
Because now you have to plug my guy, because that guy, man.
I think freiermuth is going to be a long-term Steeler.
That would be we're hoping and praying for that, for sure. Oh my gosh! I mean, the matchups, and just that catch that he had was just a great catch. It's like he's been doing it for 20 years. You know what I mean? You couldn't believe he was a rookie. That's the one thing I want to touch on here real quick here, because I know we're winding it down here a little bit, but I want to touch a little bit on the fact that we have the home opener coming up here against the Las Vegas Raiders, who was able to take the Ravens and beat them.
They did everything they could to try to lose.
They did. They really did.
Derek Carr threw an interception that was worse than the game-ending one Roethlisberger threw against Denver. You remember that one?
Yes,
4 years ago?
Yes, I do.
That was 18, I think. That was the one. That was when him and AB's relationship collapsed because AB ran the route too flat. That was what Ben said. And then they were never friends ever again.
Okay, so, but...
Yeah.
First, quick little assessment of the Raiders coming into Pittsburgh, because are you or are you not going to be in attendance?
Oh, I'll be there.
Yeah, buddy.
I'll be there. So
we're gonna have like real.
Oh, it's gonna be. I am going to be. You're gonna hear my voice on 5 Star. It's gonna be problematic.
Okay, good. Not good that it's going to be problematic, but good because I can't wait to hear it. But what's your first assessment of the Raiders coming into Pittsburgh after the first
Yeah.
week of the season?
I think they have exactly one thing that scares me, which is their interior pass rush, their front line. That Max Crosby dude is a killer. I watched him last night, and I know he was whooping up on Big Al. So Big Al was actually getting like called out on the broadcast, which I thought was. I wasn't trying to hate on him, but it was really something to see the narrative that we've all had, and then to be watching Monday Night Football, and they're like, yeah, and Al Villanueva looks lost out there, and it was wild to see. But I think Max Crosby is really good. Their pass rush is the most worrying thing. We're still starting a lot of youth up front. But I think their back end you can throw on them. I think the Steelers should have success in the pass game. I think they could have success in the run game. And I think in terms of defensively, I don't see where Oakland is better than Buffalo, and I see you're at home. Sorry, I don't see where the Raiders are better than the Bills on offense, and I saw the Steelers shut down a guy that I perceive to be a much better quarterback than Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr can make some plays. He's better than some people think. So I won't completely throw him under the bus, but against our defense, to me, he shouldn't win. Not on the road.
All right. I can't even argue with anything you said there because honestly, there really is nothing about the Raiders that has me all that terribly worried as far as, Josh Jacobs, really good running back.
Solid,
potentially.
But he's not exactly like a Derrick Henry where you're like, oh, I'm not sleeping
because
I'm thinking about it.
Right. And Henry Ruggs is not, I'm not saying that these guys aren't horrible, but
he didn't look very good. He still looks like a rookie. They have and the thing that really scares you is their tight end. Darren Waller is really high-end tight end. Tomlin said today that he reminds him. He said of anybody on our team, he's the most like Chase Claypool more than he is any of our tight ends, which I think shows you he's really someone who's going to have their attention. And I think my early 5-star prediction is you're going to see Schobert and Pierre sort of collaborate on him, sort of like they've done that in the past. I remember a long time ago going back when they did that against young Gronk with Timmons and Cortez Allen at the time, and that was like the one game. That was the one game where they did pretty good against him. I think that was 11 or 12. I don't remember. It wasn't the one where they gave up 60 points. It was the one where they did okay. And so I think you could see a little bit of that. I was impressed by Pierre. I was impressed by the whole secondary.
So was I.
That pass breakup by Pierre when Emmanuel Sanders, who, by the way, I'm glad he had a bad game, when he had caught it and Pierre hit him, slapped it out, and it was in the end zone. That was no, that one wasn't in the end zone. You're thinking of the Trey Norwood one later on. Okay. This one was like on the left sideline. It was like a deep post or in route, and it was like around midfield, and he caught it and ran like a half a step to the point where I actually thought it might have been a fumble, but it was just incomplete. But great, it looked like something you'd see Richard Sherman do. It was impressive.
By the way, he's still available, I believe.
I know he's going through a little bit of a mental health issue though, so I think
I saw
a lot of teams
some other saw some away. Others. Yeah, I saw something.
All right, Steel Flyers, we got 2 minutes here. You want to do any quick plugs before we hop out? I got a hot date to go see a movie on this fine Tuesday. All
right. Well, hopefully you enjoy your movie, and thank you very much for having me on here, man. This is always fun. Anytime. We always love talking Steelers football. What I'd like for ask you all to do is to check out my man 5-Star Matchup. You got to check him out on the Twitter. You got to check him out on the Facebook, and you got to check him out on the YouTube. If you're not following this guy, you're missing out. So check him out on all those platforms, man, for sure. Also join his Patreon.
That's a good move.
Yeah, buddy. Get that Patreon going and get that subscriptions going, man, because because you need to follow him because he's going to get you in the know. That's why we're here. That's why Steel Flyers All Sports Network is part of this. So come check him out, man. Thank you very much for having me, bro.
Appreciate that. No problem at all. And like he said, if you're watching on YouTube, there's a link tree link below. You can click that to find us on any applicable platforms. We have some merch. You can check out our new shirt, which I'm wearing right now. You can see the back of it. It's available. Yeah. You can get it at the Linktree link. But most importantly, please consider...
By the way, 3X.
Okay, yes, sir. Please consider the Patreon. That really is what helps us the most. $4 or $5 a month really does help pay the bills and keep the lights on for 5-Star Matchup. We are a small operation, even though our numbers are moderately large. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for hanging out, Steel Flyers. I'll say goodbye to you in real life after this. Everyone in the chat, y'all are the best. I will see you guys next time on 5-Star Radio. Nice. Fish in a barrel, man. I could do radio.